So we live in a society where people's attention are starting to shorten by a lot. If anything, I probably already lost you. Back when I was a kid, there wasn't so many things to keep your brain occupied, right? I'm at that age where there was a time where the internet wasn't as popular as it was today, right? When I was a kid, we were still using flip phones. If you were lucky, you had internet on that flip phone. Or even when I was a really young kid, that was even an option, right? When you're in the car, you had three options. You read a book, you listen to music, or you look out the window and use your creativity to think about other things, right? But now we live in a society where our brain is constantly looking for that dopamine hit. It's constantly thinking about what's something that I can have in front of me to preoccupy my time so I don't feel bored. Once your brain realizes it's not doing anything fun, it does everything in its power to look for something to entertain it so that it doesn't have to think about anything else. For me, it got to the point where even doing something as simple as taking a shower requires me to look for the proper podcast or look for the proper song before I can even get into the shower and just do my deed, right? So we live in that type of society where we always have to be entertained. Now, how does that affect us? Well, that affects us a lot because everybody or a lot of people has goals, right? And it's become very hard to achieve those goals when your brain is always occupied on something else, right? Because the way that you increase or get better at something is to have focus on whatever you're trying to upskill on. Whether that's studying for a real estate exam or getting your AWS certification, or you're in grad school and you're studying for your anatomy exam, all of these require focus and an understanding of the topic in front of you to get that grade that you really want or to pass whatever is in front of you. And that requires focus. The way we improve on something is to have undivided attention on that particular topic. If our focus varies, our brain can't focus on that particular subject and make the meaningful connections to make sure to remember that task. When you concentrate deeply, your brain cements learning pathways and strengthens connections between neurons so they can fire faster. When you focus intensely on a skill, you are rewiring your brain to help perform that skill more effectively. Now, have you ever read a book, right, and there's a lot of noise in that environment, or if someone's talking to you and you try to go back to reading that chapter, and then by the end of the session, you're like, man, what did I just read? It's kind of like that, right? Because your focus is not directly on the book anymore. You're focusing on so many different factors that your brain wasn't able to make the proper connections and didn't have the proper focus to make those connections to remember what you just read. Even now, a big problem that we have is you may be doing your homework or you may be doing a task, and sometimes your brain is like, man, I don't really feel like doing this. So you check your phone, and every 15, every 10 minutes, you're looking at your phone. And then by the end of the session, you're like, what did I just do? Where did the time go? Well, your focus was directly on the phone, right? You got little increments of work done, but you can't really remember what was done because your focus was entirely on the subject in front of you. I think I started to realize this problem back when the pandemic really hit back in 2020. It was a time where everybody was inside watching movies, playing video games, especially Call of Duty. I remember the boys' late night sessions playing Call of Duty. But during that time, it helped me realize that this is a great time for me to just settle down and just focus, right? But it was so hard to focus when everybody's inside and you're just trying to find that entertainment through all the struggles. So during the pandemic, I read a great book by Cal Newport called Deep Work, and that really changed the trajectory of where I went during that time, right? He gave great insight on focus and broke it down into 4 rules. Work deeply, embrace the boredom, quit social media, and drain the shallows. Now, what is deep work? Well, deep work is just time that you set aside to focus entirely on what's in front of you. Don't have any distractions. Put away your cell phone, put away the computer. Just focus, or unless you're going to use that computer to do what you're going to focus on, but make sure that you're just focusing on what you need to do. So if you're practicing for a real estate exam, you just have your real estate questionnaire up, that's it, right? Or your flashcards, that's it. Now, if you're practicing for AWS certification, well, you should have AWS up, maybe a Quizlet, maybe the website that you're using to practice at AWS, but you shouldn't be on Instagram, you shouldn't be on any other site that's not going to help you get towards the goal that you're focusing on. So that is deep work, right? Setting time that you just focus on the task at hand. And like I said, in the pandemic, I used that time to work deeply on learning languages and just becoming a better engineer. So for me, I used that time to become a better Python engineer. So I took an hour, right? Because I started off with an hour, and really everybody has a different threshold for working deeply without any focus. For me, when I first started, an hour was that threshold. but it increased over time, right? It can be an hour or 30 minutes starting off, no focus, and maybe after that, it's harder for your brain to stay focused on that task. But over time, your brain will be like, okay, I can do 30 minutes. Increase that by 15 minutes. Increase it by 30 minutes, and then keep going until you can do it for 3, 4 hours. I remember in the book, it discussed about how a good range of time is about 4 hours. Some people can do 8 hours, right? Obviously, you have to get up to use the restroom and do different tasks, but then you have to come back and focus deeply on that task. So like I said, I used the pandemic to set aside an hour, right? Or set aside 30 minutes, an hour, and then slowly increase it to 2, 3 hours. And the amount of progress that I was able to make because I wasn't focused on anything else but becoming a better Python engineer, it helped advance my skill set to another level compared to just sitting around watching movies, playing video games. It was just a different approach for me. I had a different goal, and I used deep work to get to that goal. And deep work doesn't necessarily have to be towards like becoming a better engineer or getting a real estate license. It can be something as simple as going to the gym, right? I use it at the gym all the time, right? I set aside an hour where I have a plan of things that I want to do, and I got to make sure that I'm focused on achieving that plan within that hour, hour and a half. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just real estate license, becoming a better engineer, but it could be anything that you do in everyday life. You just got to make sure that you focus on the time that you set for yourself. And like Cal Newport said in his book, you want to stay away from shallow work. Shallow work meaning tasks that doesn't really require too much focus to get done, right? You want to save those tasks for later in your day, right? So you want to get, the deep work done on things that requires a lot of focus to get an understanding of, right? Checking your emails, scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through your feeds on whatever social media that you use, like TikTok, is shallow work. That's shallow stuff, right? You studying for exam, you reading a book. Those are tasks that requires a lot of focus for you to get an understanding of. So I would say that will be some tasks that you do for deep work instead of scrolling through your feeds, because that's not really going to do much for you. Make sure that you have everything that you need before you start the deep work session. So if you have to use the restroom, use the restroom. If you're hungry, go eat, right? You want to make sure that you have a clear mind and that you're able to focus on what needs to be done. And like I said, even if you have to use the restroom during the deep work, you could go use the restroom, but just make sure you come back and focus on the task at hand. Don't go look for a snack, or if you need a snack, bring that snack while or before you're doing that deep work, and make sure that it's in front of you so you don't have to worry about it while you're in that deep work session. Just be disciplined on that time that you set for yourself and go for it. In the book, even discussed about grand gestures, meaning getting out of your usual environment. So some people are unable to study or focus, at home. I know right now a lot of people are working remotely, and sometimes it's kind of hard to stay focused at home because you have so many different factors. Like maybe you have a dog, or maybe you have kids, or maybe just too many distractions around you that you can mess around with, right? So just try to do little grand gestures, like even if that's working outside, or if you have a little patio area that you can work outside, or going to a WeWork for a couple of days to work and focus on what needs to be focused on, or going to the library. These are things that you can do to kind of get out of that usual environment or get out of that distraction zone so you can focus on what's important at hand, right? So I remember I was talking to one of my interns, or one of the interns that were working at my company, and he talked about that, right? Going back home, it was hard for him to study for his certifications because he has kids, he has a wife. So I told him, like, maybe you can talk to your wife, maybe she can hold on to the kids for an hour or two, work together with your wife, and if it's okay, then you can go to the library for an hour or two and just get in some deep work for an hour or two on the certification that you're working towards, right? Or even if you can get some work done a little bit faster while at work, you can set aside a little bit of an hour to study for a certification, because if it's a certification towards what you're doing at work, then your manager will have no problem with it, or you can talk to your manager about that as well. So those are little different things that you can do to get on that deep work train, right? You want to make sure that you have time to just study and focus to become a better individual. Another thing that Cal Newport talked about was becoming okay with being bored. Learn to be okay with being bored, right? And I started to realize this, I guess would say my second to last year in university, where I started to take the bus more because it was just better than parking on campus. So I took the bus because there was a bus stop right outside my apartment complex that goes directly to the university. And one thing that I noticed a lot was that everybody was always on their phones, right? Always on their phones. Like if there were nobody to talk to, straight to the phone, right? Nobody, like I said, when I was a kid, I always used to either listen to music, look out the window, or use my imagination thinking about something else, right? But now that I'm a grown adult and the phone is available now, the first thing that people do is look towards their phone, right? Scroll through the feeds, look at Facebook. And the thing is, it's so funny how we have this thing called social media, but social media most of the time is not even used to be social with, right? A lot of people just, liking and going on to the next picture, right? There's nothing really social about it.
Who are you people?
And people usually just use that to kind of, I guess, numb their minds a little bit, right? But for me, I started to notice that pattern. Like, why am I looking at my phone so much? And it's funny because the iPhone usually tells you, okay, this is how many hours you spent looking at your phone. And I'm like, man, did I really use the phone for that long today? Because you're just aimlessly scrolling through your feed. Well, for me, I thought, okay, let me just become okay with being bored or find a good alternative for those times where I'm bored. So what I did was I bought a Kindle paper, right? Kindle paper is just like a small little tablet, mostly used for reading books. I didn't want to get a tablet to read on because it's a little bit bright, and I didn't want to have that idea of going on the internet on the tablet as well. So what I did was I got a Kindle paper, and it's mostly used for just reading books. And it was really only like 20-30 bucks because I got it used. So what I did was I stocked it up with a whole bunch of books that I had on my list that I didn't read because I liked wasting time, I guess. And every single time I was on the bus, I made sure to pull out that Kindle paper. If there wasn't nobody that I was talking to or anyone that I was talking to, I made sure to pull out the Kindle and just start reading, right? Don't take out the phone as a first alternative, right? Take out the Kindle. At least I'm reading a book. At least that's helping my brain instead of just aimlessly scrolling through my Instagram feed, right? So just find something that, that'll help you get better and just be okay with being bored if you have to. Another thing that you could do while you're bored, whether you're on the bus or whether you're at home, you don't always have to go and watch Netflix or look through your phone for hours. You can learn different things. You can learn how to cook. You can learn how to speak another language. You can learn some history. Like there's so many other things that you can do when you're bored, right? It's okay to be bored, but just make sure that you're using that time effectively. Don't just always run to your phone because you're not really growing as an individual if you're just aimlessly scrolling through your feeds and not doing anything. Now, it's different if social media is your business and you're making funds from it, but even then, like try to make sure that you space out that time with doing something else and just becoming a better individual is what I would recommend. Now, the third rule is quitting social media. Now, this is going to be a very, very hard topic to talk about because I know how attached people are to social media nowadays, right? People like to see other people's life, right? But for me, it's like, how useful is social media for you? Now, like, social media does have its pros of always being able to be in contact with people that you don't necessarily get to see all the time, right? It's that attachment, right? That's the whole concept of Facebook, right? You may be in one place while another person's in another country. You're able to make that attachment, make that connection, and now you guys are able to message each other and see what everybody is doing on a whole other country. It's that connection, right? But over time, that has become, I wouldn't say an issue, but it has become, I guess, a problem, right? Because there's so many different types of social medias, and now everybody has connection to too many people, and they have connection to people that don't even know that they exist. So that's kind of the issue, and it really depends on how you use social media. Like I said before, maybe social media is your business, you kind of depend on it, you use it for that, or maybe you use social media to even learn some skills, because there are people that you can follow to learn how to cook, there are people that you can follow to learn how to dress, fashion. So there's personalities for that. Hey, even me, right? You can learn how to code through social media, or maybe you might be able to see what I'm working on through social media. Nothing wrong with that. But when you're on it excessively and you're unable to focus on what you need to focus on, then you may have to tell yourself, maybe I should quit social media for a couple months and get this task done, and then maybe I can download it after I get that goal finished. It's really up to you. I made that decision for myself. Recently, I deleted Instagram, I deleted Facebook, I deleted all my social media because I'm like, I'm not really necessarily using it for much, right? And I'm gonna make an Instagram or social media for my channel, but only for my channel, right? It wouldn't be for like personal usage, right? If for me, it's like, if I know you, you have my phone number, you can call me or you can text me, but I don't need to see everything all the time, right? It's unnecessary for me. If you want to talk about your latest trip to Mexico, you can call me and we can discuss about how you want to go see the pyramids and all that. That's great. I don't need to see that all the time, right? You can send me pictures. I would love to see it, but I don't need to see everybody's life all the time. Reach out to me, connect with me. But Instagram, sometimes Instagram, Twitter, Twitter is great for learning information and seeing information. I like Woj focusing on NBA information. That's great. But all the time, I would like to have my focus on other things that will help me improve as an individual. And right now, I don't feel like social media has that for me. So that's the reason why I quit. But you have to make that decision for you. And what I would recommend is that you make a list of all the social medias that you use. You put what are the benefits of that social media, right? And if the benefits outweigh the cons, then you can keep it. But if the cons outweigh the benefits, then you can go ahead and delete it. That's how I approached it, really. So Instagram is great. Yes, I like the fact that I can keep in touch with people and then I can see what they're working on, and there's personalities that I can follow and learn stuff from them. But the amount of time that I'm wasting on it, aimlessly scrolling, and just, I guess, not having that discipline to just turn it off, just by deleting it, I'm able to create that discipline for myself, and I don't have to think about it because the app doesn't exist on my phone anymore. So that's a decision I had to make for myself, and that's a decision that you're gonna make for you, right? You're gonna have to make a list and decide whether it's worth it or not. And honestly, I don't miss it. There's nothing that keeps me up at night regarding social media. Like I said, I'm at that age where I remember a time without social media and I was just fine. So I know that I can live without social media. So it just is what it is. And the last rule is just draining the shadows. He discussed about having a plan of your day, or a plan of how your day will be executed, right? From the minute you wake up to the minute you lay your head down on that pillow, you have a plan. And then you have a plan for the next day. And I understand in life that sometimes your plan doesn't go as expected. So obviously that's okay. But the more that you get in the habit of creating a plan of, okay, this is the time that I want to do deep work and this is the time that I want to do the more shallow tasks, the more you're going to be able to have an understanding of how your day will go when it is, going as expected, and how much each individual task take. How much time can your brain focus on a particular task? How can you organize your day is the whole gist of creating a plan for your day. So maybe you had your intentions of doing deep work one day, but an emergency came up and you were able to do it. That's fine. But the next day, right, you are able to do it. So you have a plan for that. So that's the reason why you set up a plan, because like I said, some days you may have other things that may take priority or something that just came up, but next day at least you have a plan of how you want to strive for whatever you're striving for. Whether, like I said, it's a real estate exam, an AWS exam, going to the gym, having just goals that you set allocated time for that you're able to focus on is important. And you don't even have to think as much, because at 10 o'clock I gotta focus and do deep work for 2 hours, and then I can go eat lunch, and then I can do checking my emails, or gotta go pick up the kids at school. Like, what you gotta do at our particular time, right? Well, maybe your kid might have had a fight at school, and you gotta go pick them up at 11 o'clock during your shallow or during your deep work time. That's okay. But the next day, after you finish disciplining your kid, you know that during that time you're gonna do some more deep work. So it's stuff like that, man. Making sure that you don't have to think as much about your day. You know what you have to focus on. And sometimes we overestimate ourselves and underestimate ourselves, right? So maybe we make a plan on doing a certain task for 3 hours, but it may have took 2 hours instead. Well, the more that we plan, the more we understand our output, right? So we can create a better schedule for the day. So just planning every day and understanding ourselves and understanding what we can do will help create a better schedule for future plans. So that's the great idea of draining the shallows. And it's also understanding what can you consider as deep work, or what requires deep work. You usually got to ask yourself this: does this task require focused attention? Does this task require specialized training or knowledge? Does this task create a new value for myself in the world? Would this task be difficult to replicate? Now, if you answer yes to most of those questions, then you can consider it as a task that needs some deep work to be done, right? It's a task that you don't know yet, or you're training for, that you need focus on, then it's most likely deep work eligible. And it's something that you should allocate some time to just focus on that. Then there's the more shallow task of checking your emails, checking your text messages, returning a phone call. Those are more shallow work that doesn't really require too much attention, and you can set that aside unless it's an emergency, right? And unless the person's calling you 5 times and it's an emergency, then okay, maybe you should probably call that person back. But if it's just a simple call, a simple text message, a simple email notification, that can wait for another time. Focus on what's at hand because it needs your attention. So yeah, that's the 4 rules, right? Work deeply, be okay with, being bored, right? Occasionally, use that time to upskill, quit social media or quit the social media that doesn't benefit you, and make sure you drain the shallows. Make sure you understand how your day look like. Make sure that you have a plan of how your day should be like. Make sure that you do the shallow work at another time. Make sure that you focus on just deep work and then do the shallow work. But like I said, create a plan for that and understand how your day is set up. Even if it doesn't go exactly as planned, but make sure that you have an understanding of how your day or how you want your day to be. And when you are able to execute that plan, then the plan is there. You don't even have to think about it. And I understand that everybody may not have 4 hours to do deep work or 8 hours to deep work, but that's not even the point of it, right? The point of it is to have the discipline to throw your phone away, throwing that distraction away, and just focus on what's at hand to become a better professional, right? Whether that's real estate, whether that's being an engineer like me. Because like I said, I use that pandemic time to really go at it and really upskill and really get better at what I'm doing, um, and pretty much utilizing all of these rules. And for me, it was really just throwing that phone away. I know that when I study now, that phone is being thrown somewhere, right? I don't even know where it is. Like I gotta find my phone after I study because I throw it somewhere so that my brain doesn't even think about grabbing it because I don't even know where it is. So you gotta find that thing that keeps you focused, keep you locked on for however long that you can. Whether that's an hour, whether that's 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 30 minutes, whatever. But be focused on the task at hand. And for me, it started off with 30 minutes, then it increased an hour, then it increased to 2 hours, and in my peak, it was 4 hours. So you just gotta gradually get to the point that you can get. And I know that everybody has different responsibilities. Some people have kids, some people have 2 jobs. That's okay. Just find that time that you can and make sure that you focus as deep as you can because that's what deep work is all about. And thanks for Cal Newport for making such a great book because that really got me aligned on what I needed to do and keep me focused on getting to that goal that I wanted to. And I still utilize it to this day.
Fighting to this day.
If anything, I kind of stepped on it a little bit, but now um, after seeing the book and remembering the work that I put in during that pandemic of getting to become a better engineer, it made me more motivated to get back on that and to utilize deep work to become a better professional. So at the end of the day, start small, aim big. Let's get started. Thank you for watching.